Yesterday, the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, estimated that this year's budget deficit will be 24% lower than it projected just a few months ago. And that is very, very good news for our country. Let's not forget that just 5 or so years ago, when President Obama came into office in January of 2009, he inherited a $1.4 trillion deficit. $1.4 trillion as a result of 2 unpaid-for wars, huge tax breaks for the wealthy and large corporations, an unfunded Medicare Part D prescription drug program written by the drug and insurance companies, and of course the terrible recession, which resulted in less revenue coming into the federal government. We experienced 4 straight years of deficits above $1 trillion. This year, the CBO projects that the deficit will just be $642 billion. $642 billion is a lot of money. It is a large deficit. We've got to continue working on that issue. But clearly, for a variety of reasons, we have made substantial progress, and we should be proud of that. By 2015, the CBO is projecting that the federal deficit will total just 2.1% of GDP, exactly what those folks who were involved with Simpson and Bowles told us we needed to achieve in order to be fiscally sustainable over the long term. So, Madam President, the good news is that we have made significant progress on deficit reduction. We should be proud of that. However, we must be cognizant that we do not place ourselves in a situation in which the operation was a success, but the patient died. And the patient that I am talking about, of course, is the disappearing middle class, the backbone of this great country. So in other words, while a lot of attention has been focused on deficit reduction, which is important, it is high time we started focusing on what is happening to tens of millions of working families, people who are unemployed, people who are working at very low-wage jobs, elderly people who can't afford their prescription drugs, families that can't afford to send their kids to college or provide child care for their young ones. So my main point today is let us start focusing on the issue of most importance to the vast majority of the American people, and that is creating the millions of jobs we desperately need and making sure that people have income that they can afford to live in dignity with. Madam President, the sad reality is, and we need to focus on these issues, is that poverty is increasing, is that in many ways the great middle class of this country, once the envy of the world, is disappearing. And sadly, the gap between the very, very wealthy and everyone else is growing wider and wider. We must not have an economy where just the people on top, just the multinational corporations do extremely well, while the vast majority of the people are struggling to make ends meet. Madam President, since 1999, the average middle-class family has seen its income go down by nearly $5,000 after adjusting for inflation. Median family income today is lower than it was in 1996. So all over this country, people get up in the morning, often husbands and wives, work long hours, and they come back and they find that they are worse off financially than they were 10, 15 years ago. And when you ask people and what direction, how the country is doing, and why they think the country is moving in the wrong direction, that is precisely the reason why. People are working long, hard hours, and they're falling further and further behind. Madam President, I understand that when we pick up the newspapers, they tell us that unemployment is 7.5%. That is one way of looking at unemployment, but if you look at it in a more accurate way, including those people who have given up looking for work, people who are working part-time when they want to work full-time, real unemployment in this nation today is 13.9%. And it is high time that this Congress began addressing that issue.